Captain Sira of the Ashfang Claw stood still in the silver grass. For the first time in many cycles, she did not trust her own instincts. The human should have panicked by now. He sat by a low blue fire at the edge of the ravine. One boot rested on a stone. He calmly stirred food in a dented metal pot. Steam rose into the cold night air around him, hidden in brush, shadow, and broken rock. 14 Ashfang hunters formed a perfect circle. No prey had ever stayed seated after the circle closed. But the human only lifted a spoon, tasted the broth, and added a little dried herb from a pouch on his belt. Sira stepped forward first. Her black mane caught the moonlight. Behind her, the others uncloaked one by one. Their eyes glowed amber in the dark. Sira said, "Human." The man looked up as if he had expected an old friend, not a kill squad. His face was dusty. His jacket was torn at one shoulder, but he stayed calm. Rowan said, "Evening." "You are late." A low growl moved around the circle. Sira narrowed all 4 of her eyes. Sira said, "You detected us." Rowan said, "You broke 3 branches, disturbed 2 ridge nests, and one of your rear scouts is limping on the left side. Good effort, though." That made Vec bare his fangs, the smallest among them. A young cub, named Taron, stepped from behind a rock before anyone could stop him. His ears twitched with open curiosity. Taron said, "Then why did you not run?" The older hunters hissed at him to stay silent, but the question had already landed. The human set the spoon aside. For a moment, only the fire moved. Then he smiled, small and tired, Rowan said. Because running would waste energy. Sira felt anger spark in her chest. Sira said, "You are surrounded by the finest trackers in this sector. We crossed a mountain chains following your scent. We watched you sleep. We watched you eat. We watched you bleed on the stones. And still you stayed here." Rowan nodded once. Rowan said, "Yes." Taron tilted his head. Taron said, "Every prey animal runs." Rowan looked at the cub. Something changed in his eyes. Not cruelty, not fear. "Maybe recognition," Rowan said. "It is where your people keep making the same mistake." Vec stepped closer. Vec said, "You think you are a hunter?" Rowan gave a soft laugh. Rowan said, "No. I know what humans are." He stood at last. He moved slowly, not to startle them, and picked up his metal cup. He was smaller than an Ashfang adult, narrower in the shoulders. He had no claws worth noting, no hardshell, no natural weapon that mattered. In the moonlight, he looked easy to break. That made his calm much worse, Rowan said. "My name is Rowan. I am a survey ranger from the Outer Belt. I crashed here 6 days ago. I have been fixing my COMM array, saving fuel, and waiting to see if the things stalking me were smart enough to talk first." Sar snapped her tail, Ar said. "You speak as if you allowed this." Rowan shrugged. Rowan said, "I had a suspicion." Taron stepped forward again. Taron said, "Why were you not scared?" Rowan looked back at the fire. Rowan said, "I was scared." The whole ring went silent. He drank from his cup before speaking again. Rowan said, "Humans are not brave because we feel no fear. Humans are brave because fear does not get the final vote." No one answered. Sira had hunted on 13 worlds. She had seen armored grazers run off cliffs. She had seen venom gliders throw themselves into canyons. She had seen one thinking species give up its own young just to buy 1 more hour of life. Fear ruled living things. It always had. Yet this soft-skinned creature spoke of fear like bad weather, Vex said. "You still should have fled," Rowan said, "from you." Vex said, "Yes." Rowan studied him for a moment, then pointed to the eastern ridge. Rowan said, "Your flanker up there has been in my sightline since sunset." Several heads turned toward the rocks. He pointed to the dead tree behind Sira. Rowan said, "There's another one there. Good camouflage. Bad angle?" He pointed toward the grass basin. Rowan said, "2 more in the dip. They keep adjusting for the wind." Then he pointed toward the ravine mouth. Rowan said, and your best hunter is crouched beside the basalt shelf. Pretending she does not smell like Chiron root sap, the hunter by the shelf pulled back without meaning to. Terran's fur lifted in shock. Even Syrah felt her throat tighten. Syrah said, "How?" Rowan crouched and drew a line in the dirt with a stick. Rowan said, "Because humans survived by noticing patterns. Bent grass. Missing bird song. Mud where it should not be. The shape of danger, before danger moves." He drew a second line that crossed the first, Rowan said. "Many species hunt with speed." He drew a third line, Rowan said. "Or strength." Then another line, Rowan said. "Or venom." He looked up, Rowan said. "Humans hunt with conclusions." Vex showed his teeth again, but with less confidence now, Vex said. "Then you admit you were hunters." Rowan tossed the stick into the fire. Sparks rose into the air, Rowan said. "Yes, that is exactly why I did not run." Syrah felt both hearts hit hard. Terran whispered. Terran said, "I do not understand." Rowan spoke in a calm, gentle voice. Rowan said, "Predators chase what flees. But humans follow. Long ago, we ran animals until their bodies failed before ours did. Not because we were faster, because we were more stubborn, and because once a human decides something matters, we do not stop." Something cold moved down Syrah's spine. She remembered the reports. Human colonies surviving poison storms. Human ships crawling home with half a hull. Human medics working for 20 hours without rest. Human explorers crossing dead moons on foot after engine failure. Endurance, adaptation, refusal, Terrans. Eyes widened, Terran said. "So if we chased UAWA and said, you would get tired first." Vex snarled. Vex said, "We have tracked you for 6 days." Rowan met his gaze. Rowan said, "And I have been mapping all 14 of you for 5. The silence after that, as Total slowly pressed her claws into the dirt. Rowan reached into his jacket. Half the circle tensed for blood, but he only pulled out a small cracked tablet. He tapped it twice and turned the screen toward them. Blinked across a topographic map, each head an HFY. Symbol, positions, distances, estimated. Paths. Terran made a small choking sound. Syrah said, "You marked us," Rowan said. "Of course. You were not subtle enough to avoid it." Vex took a step back before he caught himself. Syrah opened her senses fully, the way she should have from the start. The ravine suddenly felt different. Too ordered. Too carefully chosen, the fire sat in the exact center of a shielded bowl. Loose stones were stacked at measured points. Thin wires lay near the brush line. Almost invisible, even 2 HFY eyes dot above them on the ridge. She caught a glint that was not moonlight optics. Her breath caught. Syrah said, "You are not alone," Rowan said. "No." That one word struck like a falling blade. He nodded toward the darkness beyond the ravine. Rowan said, "2 on Overwatch. 1 medic. 1 engineer. 1 pilot with a very bad temper and a working rail turret she has been begging to test. We were not sure if your people would open talks or open bodies." No one moved. Terran spoke again, but now his voice shook. Terran said, "Then why did you let us come this close?" Rowan looked at him. For the first time, something warm showed in his face. Rowan said, "Because you brought a cub." The whole ring went stiff. Syrah stared. Syrah said, "What?" Rowan gestured toward Terran. Rowan said, "A real hunting party does not bring its youngest unless it wants him to learn. That meant there was a chance you were not here only to kill. Humans respect that. Teaching the young matters to us too." Terran swallowed. Terran said, "So you were not hunting us to kill us?" Rowan reached for the pot and poured more broth into his cup. Rowan said, "Kid, if humans wanted your pack dead, this talk would be much louder." That froze every heart in the ravine then, almost casually. Rowan lifted the pot a little. Rowan said, "Soup?" No one answered. Steam curled up between predator and human. At last, Terran looked up at Syrah with wide, unsure eyes. Terran said, "Can I?" Vex snapped. Vex said, "No." But Sira kept staring at the human, at the wires, at the glint on the ridge, at the map. Now burned into her mind. Then she looked at the cub and understood the real danger before them. It was not the traps, not the hidden rifles, not even the unseen team in the dark. It was that the human had every reason to fear them, every power to destroy them, and still chose to offer food first, slowly. Sira pulled her claws back in. Sira said, "Yes, tar." Ian walked forward on shaking legs. Rowan handed him the cup. The cub drank. His ears lifted in surprise. Taryn said, "It is good." Rowan grinned. Rowan said, "Told you no one in the Ashfang Claw relaxed for the rest of the night, but they did sit, and when dawn touched the ravine..." Captain Sira of the Ashfang wrote the first field report in her species. History to include these words: humans do not run because they do not think like prey. Worse, they do not always think like predators either. They think like something that has already decided it will outlast the dark. Asterisk if this story gave you chills. Hit subscribe to Neon Cub Tales. Like the video and comment your favorite part.